The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lot to get to tonight, man. Jam-packed show for you. So let's get right to the proceedings this evening. So Commanders did the thing that we thought they were going to do. We talked about this on the Commanders Kings last night. They signed veteran cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon. We will save that for last. I'll talk about the ramifications of that signing, what I think about it, and what it means for the cornerback room, the draft, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But let's talk about some pro days, and then we'll bring it back full circle to the Commanders specific and some of the news regarding the team. So another pro day in the books. The Texas Tech Red Raiders had their pro day. We know how productive they were defensively this past year. They're going to have a number of defensive players drafted fairly high in this draft. Lee Hunter could be a potential first-round pick, the defensive tackle. Might be a second-round pick, but he's definitely in the mix to be a first-round pick. Obviously, David Bailey is a top 10 pick in this draft, even though we've seen mock drafts where he's starting to slide. I don't buy it for 1 second. He's a guy that I think goes top 5 in this draft. And then you also have Romello Height, another edge rusher opposite of David Bailey, who I think is going to go relatively high in this draft. Thinking day 2 for him, right? Third round is somewhere where I think it's a comfortable spot taking a Romello Height in this draft. Jacob Rodriguez, who was the captain of that ship this past season, the linebacker, stud defender. He feels like a second-round pick to me. I would love it if he were on the board. I talked about this at 71, just to have an option. I don't know if they're going to take him after, you know, some of the moves that they've made and the things that they've done. But if you're considering taking Sonny Styles at 7, then you should be considering taking him at 71, right? You should be considering taking Jacob Rodriguez at 71. If Styles is in the mix at 7, Rodriguez should be in the mix at 71. Should he make it that far? I don't think he ultimately will, but we will see. Again, we talked about that running joke, you know, yesterday on the Kings, that no one's making it to 71, right? You leave it to us. I don't think he's making it to 71. Only 70 guys can go in front of the Commanders at 71, right? So every player, I don't think he's going to make it to 71. Every player is not going to be drafted. Like 200 guys can't be drafted in the top 70 picks, right? Just like 64 guys can't be first-round picks. So, you know, we'll see if a guy like Jacob Rodriguez is there. But here's a couple of videos, just some quick videos. You know, we've been looking at some of these, you know, rusher drills at these pro days for some of these guys, and you see the difference in what they look like. We saw the Ruben Bain video when he's turning the corner around the bag versus the Unveil Reese video where he's tiptoeing around the bag, right? So this is David Bailey running that same drill. We'll take a look at David Bailey running this drill, and you'll see it's a little bit cleaner, but it's not Ruben Bain, right? But I fear him more so than Ruben Bain, especially with his speed off the edge. I don't fear Ruben Bain's speed off the edge, and obviously the length is a little bit different here. I think there's a little bit more explosiveness up the field here with Bailey. Then you have his teammate. Now, I want you to watch this slide step, right? I want you to focus in on the slide step here on the second one. That step right there, you see that dragging of the foot? That's what the elite rushers do, right? Not the tiptoeing shit that we saw both Bailey kind of do. Bailey's wasn't as bad as Unveil Reese, right? But that slide step, it allows you to glide. You don't like, it's similar to a receiver, you know, making a cut. You don't want to be, you know, I remember Michael Irvin saying, you don't want to be beating up the ground, pity patting your feet, right? You don't want to tell the DB you're about to do something, right? All of this extra shit. I remember my receivers coach was like, hey, I don't want to see you doing the Fred Flintstone. That's what he would call it. You know, patting your feet before you take off, right? You just want to stick your foot in the ground and go. And if you're going to round a route as a receiver, you want to drag your foot like that, right? So that step right there, that drag step, allows you to plant and turn, right? Instead of you taking 2-3 little choppy steps, that drag of the foot allows you to plant and turn. Watch them plant and turn. That's what the elite rushers do right there. So Romello Height is another guy that you should be watching in this draft. If you're a Commanders fan, hoping he's available at 71. Not the biggest guy in the world, but if you're looking for a situational rush, which we really don't have right now. If you're starting some of these guys, you don't really have the Jacob Martin, if you will, off the bench. Everybody can't play. So when we get fully healthy with Dorrance Armstrong, somebody's got to come off the bench. So we'll have some depth then. But, you know, you want a situational rusher. This is a guy in Romello Height that could be exactly that for you. If he's available at 71, again, another guy that would be a great option available to this team. Remember, he's on the list of the Commanders' top 30 visits. We went over that list several times already. Speaking of the top 30 list, great transition, Lou. Thank you. This one was from a couple of days ago. Or excuse me. Let me go back a couple of days ago. This one was from a couple of days ago. Ben Standing. We already talked about Makai Lemon being a visit for the Commanders. So that's not new news. So Ben Standing on March 24th said, confirming that the Commanders recently worked out USC wide receiver potential top 10 pick Makai Lemon, as Rap Sheet reported. Washington needs another outside receiver. That's not Lemon, but he is electric with the ball, a yak machine. Lemon can play outside and inside, but he is really more suited to play the slot. He is way more comfortable inside, but he can play both inside and outside, but he's really more of a slot receiver. This is the part of the tweet, however, that was intriguing to me, not the first part, because we already talked about Makai Lemon being an option for the Commanders and a guy that they are looking to meet with. And according to Ben Standing, they already worked him out. Ben Standing wrote about how interest in Lemon or Carnell Tate could lead to a potential bidding war at 7 with the Saints, Chiefs, Dolphins, or Rams involved. So for the trade back crowd that may exist out there, if you're looking to get out of 7, the receivers may be your way out. They may be the ticket out of 7, right? We know the Saints desperately need an upgrade at wide receiver. So do the Chiefs. Now, they've done some shopping in free agency, but it's still not up to the level that they need from Mahomes, that they're looking for from Mahomes. Dolphins, we know they have nothing after the trading of Jalen Waddle. They have absolutely nothing at wide receiver. Not a single thing exists in that cupboard. So they could be interested. I don't necessarily think it's the smartest move in the world if you're in Miami to move up, give up draft capital when you have absolutely nothing on the roster. You just sit there and whatever guy's available, whether that's Makai Lemon, Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston, whatever. You wait on a guy, and whatever one falls to you, you take them. Whichever one's there, you just take them if you're Miami. But the Rams are very interesting because they're a team, to me, they don't give a shit. We know the mantra, F them picks, right? They don't give a shit about a first-round pick. They'll trade up. They don't care about next year's first-round pick. They don't care about next year's 2. They don't care about this year's 2. They don't give a shit about any of that. They trying to win a Super Bowl. You saw what they just gave away to go get Trent McDuffie. I don't know how many picks they have left. I don't know, I forget the exact amount of picks. I think they gave up 4 picks, 3 or 4 picks in that Trent McDuffie deal. So I don't know what kind of capital they have left at their disposal, but the Rams don't give a shit. If they see a guy that they want and they're afraid that the Saints may take him at 8, they will absolutely pick up the phone, call us, and come up and get him at 7. So this is for the trade back crowd that may exist out there that wants out of 7. The receivers may be your ticket out. Again, in order for me as a fan to be comfortable with the Commanders even fielding offers for number 7, there has to be nothing available that I want the team to take at 7 for me to be comfortable enough moving off of 7. So assuming no offensive tackles go, assuming no receivers go, which is why you would have a bidding war at 7, because none of the receivers have been taken. And all of those teams, Saints, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Rams, are all salivating at the chances to get their hands on one in particular. And it's got to be like one guy. If you're the Rams and you're coming up from 13, it's one guy in particular. I've already said, I feel like Omar Cooper Jr. would fit the Rams just as good as a Mekhi Lemon would. If I'm the Rams, I'm not moving because Omar Cooper Jr. should be there at 13. Just take him, right? But they might say, nah, it's Lemon. It's Lemon that they want. And if it's Lemon they want, Lemon they can get at 7. It's going to cost you. It may cost you a little, may cost you a lot, but it's going to cost you, right? So just wanted to throw that out there for those of you interested in trading back. Maybe, just maybe, the receivers could be the ticket. If no receivers go in the top 6 picks, if no offensive linemen go in the top 6 picks, there's a chance then that all of the stuff that we want is already gone. And all you're left with are the receivers, maybe a corner, and Reuben Bain. And at that point, you can talk me into not taking a corner at 7, waiting till 71 to do that, and trading back. Then you can get you a receiver, pick up an extra pick or 2, and then, you know, the draft really becomes something that the Commanders can, you know, maybe really benefit from a depth and a talent perspective. Maybe, just maybe, right? So thought that was interesting. But on the topic of top 30 visits, this from Ben Standing again. Source: the Commanders are expected to host Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles for a top 30 visit. Not surprising they would want a closer look at this athletic freak. He then continues, it would be surprising if one of the expected targets wasn't swinging by for a 30. So essentially what he's saying, because we're so high in the draft this year, this is unlike last year where you were drafting essentially at the back end of the, you know, first round. So you weren't really pressed to have the guy that you were thinking about drafting come into the building for a top 30 visit. I do think, if I'm not mistaken, though, Josh Connolly Jr. was a top 30 visit last year. So it usually makes a lot of sense if you're going to draft a guy, and we see it all the time where teams don't bring in a guy that they're going to end up drafting for a top 30 visit. But I'd much rather talk to a guy. I don't give a shit if you know I'm interested in a player. I'm interested in a bunch of players, right? Who's to say that this interest is any greater than the interest in the other 29 guys that I spoke with? So if I'm planning on spending a first round pick on a guy, I absolutely want to have him in for a top 30 visit. I think you're going to see the Commanders, you know, do their due diligence. I don't know if we're going to see a top golf event this year. Was there one last year? Can anybody recall if there was a top golf visit last year for the Commanders, an event rather? I wonder if that was more specific to the quarterbacks and that sort of thing. They may have another one of those. I don't think they will. But anyway, add Sonny Styles to the list. That's a guy that I think a lot of us are intrigued by. So he's another guy on the list. And how about this? Denzel Boston, according to Ben Standing, the Commanders are scheduled to host University of Washington wide receiver Denzel Boston for a 30 visit. The monster-sized target would be a logical consideration with a trade down from 7. So again, for me, none of these receivers are worthy of the 7th pick. You trade back, and we just talked about a trade back scenario where these receivers couldn't necessarily help you facilitate a trade. And if that were to be the case, and say you move back to 13 with the Rams, that's when a guy like Denzel Boston comes into play, right? Denzel Boston is a huge receiver. He's 6'4", 200, I think 220 pounds. big physical guy. Didn't have the best of days at the combine, right? I talked about how disappointed I was in him catching the football, but when you watch his tape, he catches everything. He's a vacuum. His hands are A1 official. You should see how he's snatching the football out of the air. A lot of contested catches, which usually means not a lot of separation. However, in the red zone, which is what intrigues me the most about a guy like Denzel Boston, which we currently don't have. We do not have a guy that you just say, hey, big fella, go box out this defender. I'm going to throw it up high on the top shelf where he can't get it. You go get it, and let's go dance in the end zone. We don't have a guy like that. They're hoping Treylon Burks can be that guy. I'm hoping Treylon Burks can be that guy. He caught that one pass last year against Denver, and that gives you hope he could be that guy, but I don't know if he's that guy or not. Denzel Boston is absolutely that guy. So if you're interested in a big body target, Boston would fit that mold. I wonder if he's going to run a 40 at his pro day. I don't think the UW pro day has happened yet. I could be wrong, and they could have already had it. I don't think they've had their pro day yet, though. I'd love to see what his 40 time is. If he's not going to run fast, then you just don't run, right? Like if he can run a 4.54, hell yeah, at that size, that's an excellent time, right? But if you're going to run a 4.62, you probably should just not run, right? So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but I'm just interested in another name. As you can see, the Commanders doing their due diligence here. Another guy that they probably won't draft because the likelihood is they're not going to be able to get out of 7. That's what I think. I don't think they're going to be able to get out of 7, even if they want to get out of 7. The phone may ring, but the offers that, are being solicited might not be anywhere near what it's going to take. Remember, we got a hard ass for a general manager, which is what you want. We don't want a pushover. We don't want a guy that says yes to any deal. We got a guy that if the deals don't meet his specific terms, everything has to be to his liking. And we're in the position of power because you want this pick. We don't have to move back. There are going to be players that suit our needs that we like, that we will be able to take at 7. If you want us to turn down the offer of selecting one of these players and move back so you can select the player you want, you got to make the deal sweet for us. So we are in a position where we're doing our due diligence because the likelihood is you're not going to be able to draft a Denzel Boston. Oh, you mean you could theoretically? You're not going to want to, not at 7, right? Could you draft Makai Lemon at 7? Sure. Lemon. You could, but are you really going to spend the 7th overall pick on Makai Lemon? Lemon. No, you're not. Just like you shouldn't spend it on Carnell Tate either, but I'm nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm nervous that they're going to spend the 7th overall pick on Carnell Tate. I'm less, for those of you who are Mansour Delane stands out there, I'm less optimistic that they're going to spend the 7th pick on a corner after they signed Ahkello Witherspoon. Again, the option exists for them to do that. They're already scheduled for a visit from Mansour Delane, so they're clearly interested. And again, I always felt like a veteran corner was going to happen. Again, we'll talk about that here in a bit, but we got some news from a roster standpoint. The Commanders have announced that we will get a special delivery on April 15th. So mark your calendars, April 15th. Let's get the exact date here. April 15th is a Wednesday. It is the 3rd Wednesday of the month in April. So the first day of the month in April is a Wednesday. April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. For those of you who celebrate, I haven't heard someone say April Fool's Day in about 7 years. Wow. That's crazy that even popped into my mind. But, April 1st is the first day of the month. It's a Wednesday. So the significance there is 2 weeks from that day, they will be unveiling probably at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? First thing you wake up, you're going to get an social media post, whether you're an IG or you're an X, wherever you get your information, it's going to be everywhere. And they are going to be unveiling their new, jerseys. Now, here's the video for those of you who haven't caught this. Here's the video that accompanied this post by the Commanders. Take a listen. So they basically showed you we know what the jerseys are, the new uniforms. Like, they're going back to the championship era threads. That's the worst kept secret in the league. I don't think anybody was trying to hide that. The team clearly wasn't trying to hide it with all of the different posts that they've made. They dropped breadcrumbs every step of the way. Every post when they re-signed Tress Way, he had on the championship era jerseys. When they re-signed Jeremy Reeves, championship era threads. Any guy that was here last year that they re-signed, when they posted that player, they had on the championship era threads. When they showed Tim Settle coming back to the team, now again, granted, Tim Settle never was if I'm not mistaken, he never was a Commander. He was a Washington football team member. So they didn't have him in any other uniforms other than the Redskins and the football team uniform. So that was going to happen regardless, that they were going to show him in his old uniforms when he was here. But anybody that was here last year, they showed those players in their championship era threads. You haven't seen any players on their social media, feed with the Commanders look. We've talked about the jerseys on sale on the site. Why? Because they're moving on from those jerseys and they're going to the championship era threads. Also, they had the post, the 2026 post when they were standing at the tunnel to come out, where all the players were dressed in what? Championship era threads. So what the uniforms are going to be. I've played you videos from Zach Cohen, who covers this thing like a blanket when it comes to uniforms in the NFL. He's obsessed with it. The only thing we don't know, we know we're going to get the burgundies, right? Those are our standard home uniforms, right? And if you're old enough to remember, the burgundies were primarily worn on the road under Joe Gibbs, if we're going back to the championship era. We always wore white tops, burgundy bottoms everywhere, home, away if we could. The only times we would wear the burgundies is if we were playing against a team that wore white at home. Most NFL teams wear solid colors at home. Well, the Dallas Cowboys don't, and the Arizona Cardinals don't wear, or didn't wear back in those days when they were the Phoenix Cardinals, didn't wear solid color uniforms because they were playing outside in, Phoenix, Arizona. They were playing in Tempe at one point outside. It's hot as shit. So they didn't want to have a dark color uniform on. They wanted to have on white. You see that all the time in the NFL at the beginning of seasons, where teams that generally wear, solid colors early in the season because it's hot outside, they wear their white uniforms at home and force their road opponents early in the season to wear dark colored uniforms so that they can absorb that sun and it can make them more tired. It's a psychological thing. It also is a physical thing. So in the Gibbs era, we would only wear the burgundy uniforms really twice a year because Arizona, if you remember, or the Phoenix Cardinals, were in our division. They were in the NFC East. For those of you who are too young to remember or even knew that, the NFC East consisted of 5 teams back in the day. The 4 that are currently there in the Arizona Cardinals, or then again the Phoenix Cardinals. So we would wear the burgundy, tops, white bottoms against the Cardinals, and we would wear it against the Cowboys on the road a lot of times. Those would be the only 2 times. Every time else we would wear the white tops, burgundy bottoms. So the burgundy the burgundy tops are actually going to be our home uniforms. Now, I wonder if they're truly going to go all in on the championship era mentality, then you would reverse that. You would wear the white tops at home and you would wear the burgundy tops on the road. I want to see what they're going to do. If they're turning a new page, then maybe you flip that around. You wear the burgundy tops at home, you wear the white tops on the road, and you go about it that way. We'll see what they decide to do. But we already know those are going to be the two uniforms that they unveil on April the 15th. The question then becomes, do they unveil the alternate at the same time of those uniforms? That is the $1 million question. Maybe they save the alternate for a later date and time down the road in the offseason. We'll see. We know we're going to get, and they showed us images of the hogs on the wall. They're giving you, little breadcrumbs again. They're giving you clues, or as our friend Candy Waller, shout out to our girl Seawall, always says, use your clues. They're giving you the clues. They're telling you what it is, right? So anyway, I digress. New uniform unveil April 15th. It's kind of anticlimactic because we know what they're going to be. The only way that it becomes really climactic is if they're unveiling the alternates as well, which I don't think we're going to get all at once. Feels like you can spread this out. Like Rio said, the only thing they have to have ready before the draft is the actual uniform, because we have a first round pick. And if that guy attends the draft, which I'm assuming that the guy that we draft is going to be a top 10 pick more likely than not, he's probably going to be in attendance at the draft. All guys don't show up. Some guys want to be private and enjoy this moment with family and friends, and they want to do it in the confines of their own home or around those that they love. But the likelihood is we're going to draft the guy that's going to walk up on that stage, shake the hand of Roger Goodell, and hold up that Washington Commanders uniform. You have to already have a uniform in place for that to take place. So I think they're going to do that. I don't think we're going to get the alternate uniform just yet, but fingers crossed that we do on April 15th. So big news of the day, as we talked about at the top of the show, Commanders have signed veteran cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon. Now, Ahkello Witherspoon is a guy that me and Ahkello go way back into time. As he was a guy that was someone that I was really high on coming out of Colorado. I loved Ahkello Witherspoon. And to think that he's been in the league 10 years already is crazy, right? Feels like I was just doing a mock draft with Ahkello Witherspoon as a second round pick that I wanted the Commanders to take. I think he ended up going in the third round. Big knock on him coming out was that he didn't want to tackle. He didn't want to hit anybody. And it was bad in college. He absolutely didn't want to tackle. And I think it hurt his draft stock. But when you see, the height, the weight, the speed, and he can still run, right? He's still a guy that can move at this current juncture of his career. But you look at Ahkello Witherspoon, and I just want to take a look at his measurables when he came out of college. 6'2" and a 3/4, so basically 6'3", 200 pounds, ran a 4.45. There was so much to love. Remember, he was drafted by the 49ers in 2017. And keep in mind, Adam Peters was a part of that brain trust that signed him that drafted him in the third round. And he was a bit of a disappointment early on in his career. It wasn't really until he got out of San Francisco that he really started to shine. I really believe it was when he got to the Rams, because he's played with the 49ers, he's played with the Seahawks, he's played with the Steelers. It wasn't until he got to the Rams in 2023 that I felt like he really started to figure it out. And it took him a while. And I always tell you, with players in this league, you just never know when the light bulb is going to come on. It comes on at a different time for everyone. Not everybody comes into the league, automatically hits the ground running, and is dynamic right out of the gates. Some guys have to figure it out, figure out how they fit into the equation. how can they best be of some sort of value to the team that they're on? What role can they play? Because you come from high school, you're the man. In college, you're the man. That's how you make it to the league, right? You know, we make fun of some guys. Nobody that makes it in the NFL is a scrub, right? He may not be as good as his peers, but keep in mind, there's only 1,800 players, you know, just slightly over 1,800 players in the NFL. All right. So think about how many guys are playing in college football, how many college athletes there are, how many guys are playing in alternate leagues like the UFL, and how many guys don't make it to the NFL. You make it to the NFL is because you're talented, but can you figure out how to maximize your talent? Do you have the confidence that you came into the league with? Some guys struggle with confidence. You get beat up. You know, the coaching staff is on you. You're not making the plays that you once were making. Guys are having their way with you in terms of, you know, if you're a corner, you're getting beat all the time. You're missing tackles. Now mentally, you're missing assignments. You're blowing assignments. Now you're on the bench. That's what happened to Emmanuel Forbes. I don't ever think he was made to be a first-round pick. There's an extra added pressure that comes with being a first-round pick that I don't think he was ready for. He shouldn't have been a first-round pick. And again, I never blame players for wilting under that pressure because they didn't ask for it. They want it, but they didn't ask to be drafted, you know, 17th overall. No one's turning that opportunity down. You want to be drafted that high, but the team made the mistake. That's who you should be blaming, not the player. But, you know, the fans don't give a shit about that. Everybody, there's enough blame to go around. And Ahkello Witherspoon really didn't hit his stride, I believe, until he got with the Rams. He played some excellent football, really, the last 3 seasons with the Rams. And even though he's now 30 years old, I believe. Let me get that number right. I believe he's 30 years old. Maybe he's 31. Yeah, he's 31. He just literally turned 31 on March the 21st. So he literally just turned 31, 5 days ago? So 6'2", 215, basically at this point of his career. This is the exact type of corner I was expecting this team to sign. Now, you know, remember I kept saying they're going to add a veteran. They're going to add a veteran. They're going to add a veteran. I don't know when. I don't know who it's going to be. You know, I was throwing out names like Cam Taylor-Britt because he was a little bit younger, but I felt like they were going to add a veteran of some sort. And you know what I feel like here with him? He is the perfect veteran to tie the room together, right? Think about the cornerback room now. I'm of the mindset, and I've told you guys this already, they're going to draft a corner, and I think they're going to draft one within the first 2 picks, assuming they don't trade back or do anything to disrupt the order of where they're drafting, 7 and 71st overall in the 1st and 3rd rounds, respectively. They don't do anything to alter those picks. One of those 2 picks, I believe, will be a corner. That said, their room consists of a 2nd-year player, a 3rd-year player, a player in Amik Robertson that I think was drafted in 2019. Let me go check. It's been a while with Amik Robertson. Amik Robertson was drafted in 2020. All right. So Amik Robertson is going into his 6th season. See, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So his 7th year. So you've got a 2nd-year player, a 3rd-year player, a 7th-year player, right? So a veteran, a 10th-year player, and then you're going to have a rookie. I think that the 10-year veteran kind of ties the room together, right? Ties this room together as the OG of the room, if you will. Sort of like Jonathan Jones was last year, right? So, and I like that he offers something that no one else in the room offered other than Trey Amos, which is a little bit of height and length at the position, right? As a 6'2" corner with longer arms. You know, the other guys in that room just we're diminutive in stature. So he adds value as a guy that can play on the boundary, right? Gives you another legitimate boundary corner. You've got a bunch of guys that can play inside, outside. Trey Amos can play inside, outside. Amik Robertson can play inside, outside. And again, we don't love it, but maybe it looks different in a Durante Jones scheme, but we know Mikey can play inside, outside as well. So, excuse me, you get a ton of versatility from the other guys. Then you get a pure boundary corner here in Ahkello Witherspoon. So I love this acquisition. It was to be expected that they were going to add a veteran to that mix. Now they round this group out with a corner in the draft. And now I feel like we've got a really strong cornerback room. It's not a great one, depending on what they do in the draft. You go get, a Mansour Delane or someone of that ilk in the first round, and all of a sudden it goes from a strong room to one of the strongest positions on the defensive side of the football in a blink of an eye. With Amos now becoming a legitimate number 2, which is what he's supposed to be. A Mansour Delane as your number 1. You got Amik Robertson and Mikey inside as nickels that can also go outside if need be. And then you got a veteran in Ahkello Witherspoon. Just think about it in this regard. If Ahkello Witherspoon is your 5th corner, think about who the 5th corner has been here in Washington over the last 10 years, right? Think about who the 5th corner has been. Guys like Jimmy Moreland, Noah Igbenogany, right? Who was the 5th corner last year? Was it Noah Igbenogany? We had Trey Amos, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Sainristil, Jonathan Jones, and Noah Igbenogany. So yeah, Noah Igbenogany was your 5th corner last year. In comparison to that, Ahkello Witherspoon is now your 5th corner. Like it's a massive upgrade. So this rounds out that cornerback room. It gives us tremendous depth, and most importantly, you now go into the draft with another position knocked down to the point where you don't have to do anything you don't want to. The only positions now that you have that you don't necessarily have either the depth or the front line talent that you're looking for at those positions are wide receiver and center now. And you're not drafting a center, obviously, at 7. I don't even want them to draft a center at 71. I've talked about that as well. But for those of you who were of the mindset, maybe they'll bring in a Lloyd Cushenberry. He just signed with the Buffalo Bills. In case you were wondering, or you were one of those holding out hope that a Lloyd Cushenberry III would sign here, they had ample opportunities to sign a guy like that if they were interested. Clearly, they weren't. He ends up signing with Buffalo. So that is no longer an option for the Commanders. I don't see them doing anything other than drafting a center at this point. I don't even know if they bring in a veteran to they may bring in a vet center to come in and compete at camp to give them another camp body there. But ultimately, they're going to draft themselves a center sometime in day number 3. I hope. They could take one in the 3rd round. I won't rule that out. But I think they're going to draft a center in the 3rd day of the draft. He's going to come to camp and get a ton of reps this summer, right? Behind Nick Allegretti, learn from the wily, cagey veteran. And hopefully, the hope is that this guy learns and is a quick study. And it'd be great if at some point in his rookie season, he's shown enough progress that he's ready to take over. If not, see you next year, bruh. Right? Which I have no issues. If Nick Allegretti's staying healthy and playing well, we don't need to upset the continuity of the offensive line. But at some point, you want a young pup in there, right? You want a young man in there at the center position, manning it up and hopefully being an anchor at the center position for many years to come. So we don't have to worry about this moving forward. But wide receiver sticks out like a sore thumb now. And again, I don't feel like you have to do anything drastic at 7. To me, it should not be a receiver at 7 unless you are absolutely all in and sure about that guy. And I don't think any of these guys, I've already said this, I don't think any of these guys are elite number ones. That's what you should be taking at number 7. That's what you should be taking at number 7. And I'll be honest with you, Commanders haven't had the most success and luck taking first round receivers over the last decade. So our guy, Warren Sharp, who's a friend of the program, had him on last year, the summer series, put out a tweet today where he chronicled the first round pick wide receivers over the last decade for every team in the league. And he listed them by number and team, right? So for instance, the Commanders have drafted 2 first round wide receivers in the last decade. Can you name them? I'm going to actually look at the comment section to see if y'all can name the 2 receivers. Y'all got it, because y'all fiends just like me. If you said Josh Doctson and Jahan Dotson, you know how similar those names are? You know how many times fans confuse the 2 names called Jahan Dotson, Jahan Doxson, and maybe they did it on purpose because of how he played. I don't know. But Josh Doctson, who everybody says, oh, you know, you look like Josh Doctson. Josh Doctson looks like me. I'm older than him, okay? Respect your elders. He looks like me. And Jahan Dotson are the 2 receivers that the Commanders have taken in the first round over the last decade. Neither of them worked out. I don't have to explain to you. Neither of them made it to a second contract here. Hell, I don't think either of them made it to the end of their rookie contract. I don't think either of them made it 4 years in Washington. I think Dotson made it 3 years and got cut in year 4. And I think Jahan Dotson was traded after year 2 here in Washington. He was drafted in 2022, and the new guys came in 24 and traded him that summer. So we haven't had a ton of success in drafting first round receivers. That doesn't mean you don't draft one because of past failures. It just means you need to be more careful the next time you do it, right? So I don't envision them taking a receiver at 7, but if they do, it feels like it's going to be Cornell Tate, which I'm not thrilled about. But they're doing their due diligence. They had a long conversation with Cornell Tate at the Ohio State Pro Day yesterday. They've already worked out Makai Lemon. We talked about Ben Standing, talking about Denzel Boston coming in for a top 30 visit. They're doing their due diligence in the event. I believe all of these receiver conversations are only under the auspice that they are moving back in the first round. They are not going to take a receiver at 7. To me, that is not a waste. That is a strong word. That is not a waste of the 7th overall pick, but it is, I believe, a misuse of the 7th overall pick. I do believe you are not maximizing that pick if you are to take a receiver at 7. But again, we'll see what they decide to do. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Zing Zycoat, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Zingy or Zing or Zingy. Zingy writes, Louie, when we get an NFC Super Friends, HTTC? I don't know. We were this close to getting one off a couple weeks ago, and one of the Super Friends' schedules, kind of conflicted with what we had going on and what we had agreed to. And so we weren't able to do it. And that's really been what's been holding it up, is everybody's just busy. Everybody's doing their own thing. And every time we think we're close to getting the show off, somebody's schedule conflicts with what we got going on. And that's life, shit happens. And so I wish I could give you a date, but I can't. But eventually we'll link up. Eventually we will link up and get a show off at some point. Wrath of God. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Wrath of God writes, AP not playing with depth no more. No more. He says, no more Seymour or Robbie Chosen. No more Chris Moore, no more Robbie Chosen. I told you they won't bring them dudes back. Those were guys that were here out of necessity last year. That was one of those situations where they were just comfortable with those guys. You rather deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. They knew Chris Moore from being in camp with them the year before, being in this program all year last year. So why get rid of him and go out and get another guy when we got to teach that guy the system, what we're doing? Just leave Chris Moore here. That was cool last year. It is not cool. Robbie Chosen was only here out of necessity, right? They needed a veteran that had been around the block, has spun the block a couple of times, that could come in, pick up the system quickly. Yeah, those days are gone. We don't need to have those type of conversations any longer here in Washington. We're not going back there ever again, right? HK Hawkins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. HK writes, imagine having to rely on the taste of someone who chose to marry Dan Snyder for your team's uniforms. So glad we're changing. HTTR, HTTC. There are a lot of people who aren't thrilled that they're moving away from the Commander's uniform. This is the thing. When it comes to the uniforms, when it comes to the name, you're never going to satisfy everyone. All right. It's not going to happen. If you're Josh Harrison Company, you do what you feel like is best for the brand. You do the thing that you feel like is the best moving forward for the brand. And I think, honestly, if we're being honest with one another, I think this is the best thing for the brand for the reason you just mentioned. This is the last stench that Dan Snyder has on the organization, other than the name, of course, which I don't think is going anywhere, right? Like, the uniforms are an ode to the yesteryear of this team's history that was its greatest. And they want to get back as close to that as they can. They can't get the logo back, but this is as close as you're going to get back to feeling some bit of nostalgia and a piece of the past that was robbed from this team. Who are we kidding? They stole our identity from us. Okay? Is what they did. They bullied us into something that shouldn't have ever happened, but it is what it is. And so you can't get the name back. You're not going to get the logo back, but we can get you your uniforms back. At least when you play the Cowboys, it actually looks like Cowboys Redskins. It ain't Cowboys Redskins, but at least it looks like it now. Like, for those of you who, get into the rivalry of Dallas and Washington, I can tell you when Carson Wentz was here that 2022 season, and we went to Dallas and they're wearing their white uniforms and we're wearing our battle blacks. I can tell you that shit looked so awkward and weird to me. And I love the battle blacks, by the way. But that shit looked so out of place. We're playing Dallas and we've got on black uniforms. If there's ever an opponent that you don't wear those against, it's Dallas, it's Philadelphia, it's the Giants. There should be some sort of nostalgia when you're playing those teams. It should look like you're playing one of those teams. You want to wear the battle blacks, do it against Chicago like you do every year. Do it against Seattle, do it against Arizona. Don't do it against the Cowboys. When we look, when those Commander uniforms, I always told you, I hated the white uniforms. The only reason that they grew on me just a smidge was 2024. We won big in those uniforms. We didn't win the Super Bowl, so let's not go too far. But for a large portion of this fan base, that's the most winning they've ever seen this organization do. And they did it in those uniforms. For another portion of the fan base who's of a certain age, they've seen this team win Super Bowls, plural, with an S, Super Bowls, multiple, in the uniforms that they're about to put back on, minus the helmet. So, again, you're not going to please everyone. You know, the younger generation, they are more so like, what are you guys doing? We haven't won anything in these uniforms. Get these shits out of here. People like myself, I'm like, I don't really give a shit. Just win football games, right? But I'll be honest, I love the look of yesteryear with the cleaned up look, like I like when Santana Moss, Clint Portis, Chris Cooley, and those guys were wearing a uniform with the smaller letters on the back, the smaller font. I liked the new design of the uniform, but the small letters on the back didn't do anything for me. The new stitching with the bigger letters that mirrored the ones of yesteryear, coupled with the new look of the uniform, that does something for me. Like, you're combining the best of both worlds, of the best elements of those two uniforms. Because, like Rio said, our old championship era threads, the ones we wore when we won the Super Bowls, they look like they were fresh out of Marshalls, right? They look like you got them out of some plastic container. You opened it up, you put it on, and it was a champion uniform, right? It would have like a champion logo on it somewhere. It looked cheap. It looked like tearaway uniforms that you would wear at practice. Yeah. So I love the name on those uniforms, though. The huge name, the huge font and letters. So you take that, that's the best part of that uniform, along with the stripe down the side of the pants, and you integrate the upgrades to the uniforms that we saw over the years, to the uniforms that we saw with the embolded, numbers. I hope they have, something, Washington, Commanders, something across the chest plate. They probably won't, but I would like to see something here, because that was one of the tweaks that they made to the upgraded versions that I liked. And then you add that name on the back, and I think you got a winner chicken dinner. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm glad they're changing the team uniforms. I don't really care, but if you were going to change them, I'll be honest, even though we got our asses handed to us just about every time we wore those uniforms, sans for the Denver game. Like, every time we wore them, we got embarrassed. Jaden got hurt against the Seahawks, but before he even got hurt, we were getting our asses handed to us. I think we wore them against Denver. We wore them against Dallas on Christmas Day. We didn't embarrass ourselves in that game, but we were down pretty big at halftime, but we made it a game in the second half, but never felt like we were going to win that game. And then we wore them 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. Dallas, Christmas Day, Broncos, Seahawks. Maybe we only wore them 3 times. Felt like we wore them 4. But they were all primetime games, right? Of some sort. Well, standalone games, island games, if you will. Let me be more specific. And we didn't fare well in them. We didn't win any games in them. We were only competitive really in one of those games. Again, the Dallas game ended up being a close game at the end, but we're getting our asses handed to us at halftime of that game. And Josh Johnson's your quarterback in that game. I mean, what are we talking about? We look clean in those games, though. You say what you want about the outcome. You can't tell me we didn't look crispy in those games. Those uniforms pop. Whether you like them or you don't, they pop. And I'm not opposed to going back to them. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think the extra cherry on top is you're erasing a little bit more of the stench of Dan Snyder for those of you who care about that. That shit doesn't bother me at this point. Short man's gone, and I don't even think about that guy. The only time I ever bring him up is when you guys bring him up. I don't bring him up unless you guys bring him up. Futuristic Willie, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Futuristic Willie writes, what's up, Lou? What up, Willie? Says, tell me whose lyrics these are. Hey, girl, how are you doing? My name is Charlie, last name Wilson. Is that where you were going for? Hashtag MusicHead University. That was pretty easy. You got to come better than that, man. If that's what you were looking for, that was pretty easy. Appreciate you, though. And I appreciate you keeping MusicHead University alive because it's alive to me. Once I get my tower back, man, I'm going ham with MusicHead University. And my tower's in the shop. I know y'all tired of hearing about this goddamn tower. I promise you it's in the shop. We working over here, man. We taking baby steps. Stu Vision, been a member for 11 months. Really appreciate you, right? Salute to you and the fam, bro. Hashtag go birds. Shout out to you, Stu, man. I appreciate you coming back, checking out the channel, hanging around. You know you my guy, right? There's a select few of y'all Eagles fans, you dirty bird fans that I get down with. You're one of the guys that I rock with, man. Shout out to you and yours, Stu, man. Really, truly do appreciate you. Dougalicious, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Dougalicious writes, Mina Kimes thinks we shouldn't get love and get Tate. There's varying opinions. I don't know if you guys saw Kevin Sheehan say that he doesn't think that Jeremiah Love is worthy of the 7th pick in the draft. He doesn't think he's one of the elite backs. He doesn't think his talents are that great. He says thinks he's going to be a really good back. He feels the exact same way I feel about the receivers. He feels about Jeremiah Love, right? And again, that's the beauty of the draft. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Nobody's right or wrong. We all have opinions. It doesn't mean ours is right. It's just the way we feel. We could sit here, list our top 10 players in this draft. I could get 10 people, and our top 10 list will probably all look different. None of us will have an identical top 10. I could get 100 people. I could get 1,000 people, and our top 10 list probably wouldn't be identical. How many ways can you mix up 10 different names, right? I mean, but shit, you got over 250 guys that are going to be in this draft. You can put anybody's name in the top 10, right? That's the beauty of this thing, is you see one thing when you watch a player. I see something totally different. Another person sees something totally different. We may agree on a prospect, but we may not agree, is he worth this pick, or this is where he should go, or this is what I think he can bring to the table. And so you get a lot of people that believe Jeremiah Love is a perfect fit here. He should be the pick here. Then you get people that don't believe he's the pick here and he shouldn't be the pick here. And, I already told you, I tuned Mina Kimes out because she is a hater. She of the Commanders in particular. Maybe she's a little bit more a little less honorary these days towards us because they won the Super Bowl. She's a Seahawks fan. So they just won the Super Bowl. So maybe she's, cheery now, and whatever grudge she has, she's letting bygones be bygones. But anything Mina Kimes on my timeline, I just keep scrolling. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what she thinks. But ultimately, I don't want Tate at 7. If we get Tate at 12 or 13, I talked about the Ben Standing trade down options. Say the Rams trade up to get a receiver, and we trade back to 13 and Tate's there at 13, I don't have an issue with it. Because now you flip the pick, you've gotten Tate, and you're going to probably have a second rounder at your disposal, or you'll have an additional second rounder next year at your disposal, or you'll have an additional third rounder, at your disposal. Whatever the case may be, you'll have more draft capital at your disposal, whether it's this year or next year. in addition to Carnell Tate. Now I feel like I got a deal. Now I feel like I got it. Because I always tell y'all, I need to feel like I just won. Anytime I'm spending anything of note, money, draft capital, etc., right? And this extends to life. Like when I spend money, I need to feel like I won. I don't ever want to walk away with a purchase feeling like I just got taken advantage of. If I do feel that way, the longer you let me stand in line with that item and get in my own head, buyer's remorse starts to set in. I might not purchase this item. I might get to the register. Hey, I don't want this. You put this back. I'll take those $1.99 socks though. But these $147 shoes, these are worth $120 to me. You can knock off those $27. I'll walk out of here with these shoes right now. I need to feel like I'm winning. Generally, if some shoes that I have are $147, that means they were originally $250. They were originally $225 or $200. And I'm walking out of here with them because this is a steal. And they have to be foams or something of that note, because something of that ilk, because I got to get my usage out of them. If I'm going to spend that kind of money on some shoes, they got to be rough, tough, and rugged. And foams are that. I'm going to get my money's worth out of some foams. So that's the only pair of shoes I'm willing to spend that kind of money on. Right? But I got to feel like I'm getting a deal. Carnell Tate at 7 isn't a deal. You move back and you get Carnell Tate and additional draft capital. Now we have a deal. Anybody that thinks we shouldn't get Jeremiah Love at 7, I just disagree with them. I'm not telling them they're wrong. We're just not seeing it the same. That's all. And I've heard all the conversations about value. I saw a video the other day about the value of the position that you're taking. How teams view drafting first-round picks, top 10 picks, top 5 picks in particular. How much money they make versus what they would make on the open market. And, you know, if you're drafting a running back and he's making $11 million on his rookie contract, right, in year number 1 of his rookie contract versus $13 million, like the highest paid running back in the league right now, AAV, is Saquon Barkley at $20 million. The second highest paid is $15 million, Breece Hall on the franchise tag. And then the third, or I think it's like 5th is like, or 7th is James Cook, I think at $13 million or something like that. And basically they're saying you're paying a running back $11 million on a rookie deal. And if he becomes the top 5, he was the 5th highest paid running back, was James Cook at $13 million. If he becomes a top 5 player at his position, right, which is what you're hoping he does, then you're only saving $2 to $3 million per year till you get to that 5th year option, which then that number balloons. You're not saving enough money, right? You're saving an aggregate on a 4-year deal, let's say, because that 5th year, you're going to try, if that guy's as good as you say he is, you're probably going to try to get a deal done before that 5th year option kicks in because it's so expensive. You're saving about roughly $8 million over the 4 years versus if you draft the Carnell Tate, for instance, and he becomes a top 5 player at his position, which he's not, which is why I wouldn't take him at 7, or in this case, the person that was talking about it was referring to the Giants at 5. Well, let's say you take Carnell Tate and he becomes a top 5 player at his position. I think the 5th highest paid receiver right now is making like $33 million. He'd be making 11 because the rookie wage scale doesn't matter what position you play. It's just slotted by where you were taken. You're making $11 million. 5th highest paid receiver is making $33 million. There's a $22 million gap. You multiply that by 4, that's $88 million that you're saving. So that's how people look at it. That's how front offices made. I don't give a shit about any of that. I want the best player that's going to impact my team. Figure out the dollars and make them make sense down the road. You know, when we start talking about a contract, I could care less about, well, if this guy was on the open market and this versus, I don't give a shit about none of that. Is Jeremiah Love the best player on the board? Can he help my team go from middle of the pack NFL offense or, you know, slightly above average NFL offense to elite NFL offense for the next 3-4 years and give us a chance to win the Super Bowl? If the answer is yes, then I don't need to have any of those conversations. Just give me Jeremiah Love if he's available. So anyway, I digress. Futuristic Willie, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, the new MJ movie drops on April 24th, Lou. So MusicHead, you got to be up by then for the post-movie review, LOL. Hashtag MusicHead University. Yeah, that's absolutely. I heard they're going to do 2 of them. Like, this is supposed to be like part 1 of his story, and then there's supposed to be a second one. Now, I could be wrong about that. I'm already envisioning this thing being like 3 hours long. It's probably gonna be even long. It could be even longer than that. This is going to be a movie. So can't wait to see what this thing looks like. And I love the fact that they have one of his, you know, nephews playing him because he looks like him, knows his mannerisms, et cetera, et cetera. So going to be really interesting to see how that movie goes. I can't tell you when the tower is going to be fixed, but one can only hope, man. Fingers crossed, right? Zingy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Zingy writes, only way I want black unis is if they are cherry blossom. All black with cherry blossoms would be sick as F. I don't know why so many people don't like them. Because the blossoms are overdone. Like the Nats have them. The Wizards are bringing back their cherry blossom unis next year. Let those teams have it. We don't need to we don't need to get involved in the cherry blossom thing, right? We don't need to get involved in that. That's their thing. We got our thing. Black unis, you got people kind of split on those. They weren't always a part of the color scheme. So there's people that don't love it. I'm for the black uniforms. I love that there's an alternate there. With black in it. It's a new day and age. You know, I think if you're the Commanders, you're Josh Harris, while you want to honor the past and you want to make sure that past is somehow, you know, still held on to, not forgotten, and paid homage to, you also want to integrate present day. And black uniforms, everybody in the league's got one just about. And again, the traditional team, like Dallas, doesn't have a black uniform. The Packers, I don't think they have a black uniform, right? The traditional teams don't have one. The Bears don't have one, right? The Giants don't have a black uniform. Like the traditional teams, we'll call them the blue bloods, right? They don't have them. Now the Cowboys aren't a blue blood. They didn't come around until 1960. We would be more in that conversation. Chicago Bears, New York Giants, you know, Green Bay Packers, Washington. We were the Boston Braves then, but you know, those teams don't really have black uniforms, but they have alternates, right? They have alternates, like the Bears wear those all orange alternates with the orange helmets. Like, you got to integrate something that's different. If you don't want black, fine. Then you better give us some crispy ass alternate uniform that makes us forget about the blacks. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. But if Zach Cohen, who has been spot on about all this stuff, is correct, we're getting a black uniform. We're getting a black uniform. So, but I don't want it to be cherry blossom. That's where we disagree. I think the black uniforms are fine, and I don't want a cherry blossom uniform. Cherry blossoms grow in the springtime. Let the spring teams have it, right? The Nats play in the spring. you know, the Wizards play in the spring. Let the spring teams have it. We a winter fall team. Let us stick to the script. Let us stick to the script. Dougalicious, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, love is the weapon I want at 7 too, Lou. Mina Kimes just thinks the running back room is good enough and Tate is a great compliment to Terry, and she still has a problem with edges. LOL. Again, our pass rush is fine right now. Our pass rush is fine. But if you're looking into the future, we should acquire one in the draft, if at all possible. Don't reach for one, but I feel like you should either be taking one in the first 2 days, or you should be taking one developmental at the end of the draft, like 6th or 7th round. Save the 5th round for the center, right? And you can take a edge with one of the 6th or the 7th round pick, like you did Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Get you a developmental, right? About time to replace him, upgrade him at this point. If you don't get one in the first 2 rounds, first 2 picks rather. Because I feel like that 5th round pick is strictly for the center. I know Rio was trying to push him back all the way to the 6th round. Hey, you can use one of them 2 6th rounders. Let's just get the center in the 5th round, man. Let's not go too far back. Let's get the center in the 5th round. But Tate probably would be a solid compliment. I think any of these receivers would be a great compliment to Terry. If we're being honest, I think any of these receivers would be a great compliment to Terry. And you're still getting Brandon Ayuk. Like, I ain't going to keep talking about Ayuk because it's going to be a while before he gets here, but we're still getting him too. So I'm all for adding a receiver. It doesn't have to be at 7. Our running back room is perfectly fine. Absolutely. It's a good room. But much like the edge rusher position, next year, it's going to look just like it looks right now, or like it looked going into the offseason. Empty, right? Bill is the only guy under contract next year for this team. He's the only guy. 1-year deals for all of the running backs that they brought in here. 1-year deals for all of them across the board. So either you're going to have to bring 1 or 2 of those guys back like you do with Jeremy McNichols every year. J-Mac comes back every year on a 1-year deal. Maybe you can do that again with, Jerome Ford. You can do that with Rashad White if those guys play really well for you. But Jeremiah Love, again, you got a chance to hit a home run. Or, again, at least swing for the fences. So, yeah, Tate would be a good compliment. I think any of these receivers would be a really good compliment to Terry. Tate is well-versed. He speaks the number 2 wide receiver language fluently, which is why he'd be a great compliment to Terry, which is why I don't want to take him at 7. I'm not looking to draft a number 2 wide receiver at 7. That concept, I don't think, is very hard. When did it become okay to draft a number 2 receiver in the top 10 of a draft? When did that ever become the goal? Get a number 2 receiver. And again, Tate could be your number 1 2 years from now when Terry's no longer on the roster. Yeah, sure, fine. I don't think Carnell Tate's a number 1 receiver in this league. I don't. I think he's a good receiver. I don't think he's elite or even borderline elite. I think, like Ed said, he's a high-level 2. That is excellent. You don't take high-level 2s in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Not saying, just saying. Lion Ace, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lion Ace writes, got off the phone with the team exec. We are taking the best player available. We got Black Simo as our number 2 wide receiver. No receivers added at 7. Hashtag in Lou we trust. As long as they maximize the 7th overall pick, I don't really care what position you go in. There's so many options at 7. There's edge rusher, there's linebacker, there's safety, there's corner. I mean, there's so many ways you could go. And then there's obviously running back. Receiver isn't in that mix for me. It just doesn't make any sense. Just doesn't make any sense. I feel more comfortable now. I feel a lot more confident about it now that you've gotten off the phone with an exec that's told you we're not going to do that. So BPA is what it should be. And again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So us taking BPA doesn't mean a damn thing because it ain't our BPA they're taking. They're not taking your BPA. They're not taking my BPA. They're not taking his BPA. They're taking Adam Peters and their commanders tag and their commanders caucus BPA board. That could have Carnell Tate as the option when they get on the clock at 7 as BPA, which would piss me off. No, it wouldn't piss me off. That's strong language because you can't make me mad at 7. The only way you can make me mad is if you did something like take the only way you could make me mad is if you took the Auburn defensive lineman. What's his damn name? I always forget his damn name. Kedrick Falk. That's the only way you can make me mad. And they're not going to do that. Like, it's the same thing I said about the name once upon a time. Like, I don't care. You can't piss me off with the name. They're not going to name us the Washington Tampons. Okay? As long as they don't do something stupid with the name, which I knew they weren't going to. I said, I don't really care what the name is. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be upset. I don't care. They're not going to make me mad at 7. Trading back won't make me mad. I might be disappointed there was some guys on the board that I thought were worth taking, but if they felt like the best option for the team moving forward was to trade back, cool. I'm with it. I'm with it. Let's get it. I'll be disappointed if they take Ruben Bain. I'll be disappointed if they take Carnell Tate, especially if there are options on the board, which there probably will be that I felt like were better suited for this team and maximize the pick better. I'll be disappointed. But disappointed is one thing. Mad is a different emotion. I'll be disappointed. I'll be all right. If I'm mad, oh, I'm pissed. That's the Ron Payne territory. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to be. Nothing they do is going to make me feel that emotion, right? So we'll see what they decide to do. But BPA could mean Carnell Tate for them, which is the scary thing. Lion Ace, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lion Ace writes, oh, we just read this one just now. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, though. Really, truly do appreciate you. Futuristic Willie, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Futuristic Willie writes, do you feel that any of the back-end receivers of this draft could turn out better than the first 3 guys? Chris Brazel's tape is elite, man. Well, I already showed you a couple of days ago that Chris Sims has Chris Brazel the second as his number 2 receiver, I believe, in the draft. Let me see if I can find his list really quickly. But I'm pretty sure he had him as his number 2 receiver on his list. Let me see if I can track it down. This was his list right here. 3rd, he had Chris Brazel the second as his 3rd receiver in the draft. These are his tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So, like, you can't deny his height. He's a height, weight, speed specimen. Let me get his actual height, because if I'm not mistaken, he's like 6'3". 200 and something pounds, and he ran a 4.37, which is just insane for his size. Let me look him up real quick. 6'4", 200 pounds, 6'4", 198. Ran the 4.37. I will say that you always got to be careful with Tennessee wide receivers because of the offense that they run, right? They run an offense that makes their receivers look a lot better than what they may truly be. Remember, I fell in love with one of their prospects last year. The Raiders ended up taking him. I can't remember. Thornton, right? I think his name was Thornton, right? Big, I think he was 6'5", ran the 4.340 last year, I believe. Vertical guy could, I was like, he can catch a slant and go, he can get the vertical, deep ball. They split those receivers out all the way outside the hashes and let them go to work in that Josh Heupel offense. It's an offense that definitely lends itself to be helping receivers look, a little bit better than they may ultimately be at the next level. But he's talented for sure. And, it was funny because Rio and I were having a conversation about the receivers, and he literally kind of said the same thing you just said. Like, he thinks there's a chance that some of these other receivers end up being better than the guys that we're discussing at the top of the draft, i.e. a Carnell Tate, for instance. And it's easy to say that because, and I think I said this yesterday when it comes to a guy like Carnell Tate. And I know it feels like we're picking on Carnell Tate at this point, but he is, to me, a bit polarizing, right? Carnell Tate isn't flashy. He's not flashy. Yeah, he's 6'2", but he's not 215. Denzel Boston is, let's get his exact measurables. Denzel Boston is 6'4", 212 with almost 10-inch hands. Pause. Could go high point the football, use his frame. Like, there's an elite attribute there, right? You look at Makai Lemon, run after the catch is elite, right? Get it in his hands and he can do some really special things with the football. He's a high volume guy. Just throw it to him. You can go get it. He can make it happen. Jordan Tyson, he's a guy that kind of offers a little blend of everything, right? Not the fastest, but he can run good routes. He can go get the football in contested catch situations. He can high point the ball. You get a little smidge of run after the catch. Not really, but he just does. He's a little blend of everything, right? Carnell Tate doesn't have a defining attribute. Nothing stands out about him. And it's hard to get super excited about guys that don't have anything flashy or that don't. Like, Chris Brazzell stands out because he's big and he's fast. Like, he's 6'4", basically 200 pounds, and he runs a sub 4.4. Like, that's flashy. That pops, right? Denzel Boston is snatching a football away from dudes who are draped all over him, and it's all hands. It ain't him going up and catching a ball like this with his body. He got his hands. The defender has his hands on the ball, and he take the ball and he snatches it away from the defender. Like, man, get your little ass. What you think you're doing here, man? This shit ain't yours. That catches your attention. That wins anywhere. College, NFL, CFL, UFL. There are guys that are in, the third round, potentially second round. We talked about a guy in Skylar Bell of UConn. I think he can end up being a really good NFL wide receiver. There are going to be some guys that end up being really good that we're not really talking about right now. I watched. So remember, we were talking about the other USC wide receiver. Shucks, what's his name? Jacoby Lane. I watched him. I like him a lot. Like, there's gonna be some guys that I think end up being like really solid NFL receivers. Maybe just as good, if not better, than some of the guys that we're talking about at the top of the draft. So, yeah, I do think there's going to be one or two guys that may end up finding themselves in that conversation. Thank you for that, futuristic Willie. Anyway, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow's Friday, which means Mock Draft Friday. So we'll have a brand new mock draft for you tomorrow. I'll figure out what the theme of tomorrow's mock draft will be. But whatever the case may be, you're going to get a mock draft out of me tomorrow. And we will start. I think I'm going to wait till next week to start siphoning out the wide receiver videos, because I am going on vacation next week. I'll have more information for you on that next week, and I will let you know what my vacation schedule is, so you will know that I will not be in the office at all during that time. But as always, I'm going to leave you with some parting gifts. I will not leave you bare, out, alone, and cold in the dark without any content while I am gone, but I will get into the specifics of that next week. So I think I'm going to save some of that for then. But in any event, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. And good night. Commanders sign cornerback. Ahkello Witherspoon. Cornerback position is starting to round into form. They're going to draft one to complete that room. Now all that's left, wide receiver and center.